Assalamualaikum, we are from Group C. We are going to present our project which is different pack comparison test.
Pandan cake is essentially chiffon cake which originated from USA in the 1920. Pandan chiffon cake is so popular in Southeast Asia that was named Singapore and Malaysia national cake. It's also incredibly popular in Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, China and Hong Kong. Nowadays, pandan cake is becoming more popular across the Western world as well. The problem was found when consumers want to retain the same taste of pandan cakes, even from various brands. As we know from the market, mostly taste of pandan cake is slightly different due to different formulation and ingredients. This sensitive project must be conducted by using a different pair comparison test. Tester assess both sample and indicates whether dating sample are the same or different when they eat. This test is actually one of the test discrimination tests. The objective of this project is to determine if the difference between two samples of pandan cake is significant.
Next is the materials and methods that are used in this project. The testing was done at the sensory room on level 1 of Faculty Science Technology in USIP, and the panelist types consisted of untrained and consumers. Using 60 panelists including HAIDAY students and degree students of year 1 until year 4 with randomized age and genders. There are two different types of pandan cake layer that we used as samples, which is Apollo pandan layer cake and Oriental layer cake with pandan flavor. These are the ingredients for each sample. The test that we used for our project is different pack comparison test. Different pack comparison tests are used to compare two samples simultaneously in order to identify whether they share the same or different attributes. Now we continue with the procedure for this project. First, the permutation numbers with 3-digit random code numbers are prepared by researchers on the master sheet. Second, both samples are cut into small pieces of the same sizes and then are put into small serving plates. Each sample is poked with a toothpick, easier for the panelists to pick up the samples. The third one, the samples are arranged according to the master sheet composed of random code numbers. Then, two samples are picked and arranged on the serving trays according to the permutation number on the master sheet. Next, the score sheet and questionnaire are neatly arranged on the side of the serving trays. A cup of rinsed water and a pencil are also provided on each tray. Panelists need to read the instructions and compare the attributes of the samples given whether the two samples are same or different. Panelists need to indicate whether there is a difference or not in the sample given by circling on the corresponding word on the score sheet. Then, panelists need to answer the questionnaire given. All the results on the score sheets and questionnaires are recorded. All the apparatus are then washed and dried by the researchers.
The result of these different pack comparison tests are 44 panelists, which is 73% have chosen the right answer, while the other 16 panelists, which is 27% have chosen the wrong answer. This result shows that most of the panelists could detect the differences of the two samples, and only 16 panelists could not tell the differences. A consumer survey questionnaire has been given to the panelists in order to record their responses that might affect their answers choices. From the survey, 38 panelists, which is 63% are female, and 22 panelists, which is 37% are male, have taken part in this test. The age range is between below 20 years old until 25 years old. As the project testing took place at the Faculty of Science and Technology USIM, all the panelists are students. There are 50 students, which is 83%, ranging from 21 to 25 years old, and 10 students, which is 17% below 20 years old. The panelist preference of the pandan cake brands is also obtained from the survey questionnaire. The data finds that 37 panelists, which is 62%, choose Apollo as the brand they like the most. There are 17 panelists, which is 28% choosing other brands, and 6 panelists, which is 10% choosing Sina as their preferred brand. These data findings show that pandan cake is not really popular flavoured among the panelists because many panelists do not really know about other brands of pandan cake besides Apollo. From the survey questionnaire, times of consumed pandan cake can be determined. There are 45 panelists, which is 75% that usually take the pandan cake once a month, and 15 panelists, which is 25% take pandan cake often. For a different pack comparison test, we are using 60 panelists. The results obtained are 44 panelists correctly match the sample to the reference. Next, from row ST table value for 60 panelists at 5% probability is 37 panelists must be correctly matched to the reference. Thus, there is a significant difference. Therefore, panelists could detect a difference between the samples.
Another tool for data analysis is using Excel. By Excel, we can analyze data using chi-square test. The adjusted chi-square test is used to determine whether a statistically significant difference exists between the expected and observed frequencies of this test. The chi-square critical value for a one-tailed test with a degree of freedom which is 1 and 0.05 is 3.841. So after insert all the needed, the calculated statistic from Excel is 13.03, which is greater than the chi-square critical value. Thus, we can reject the null hypothesis as there is statistically significant difference between the Apollo and Origin Pandan cake.
We also use the method to analyze the data. The adjusted chi-square test is used to determine whether there is statistically significant difference between the expected frequency and the observed frequency of the test. The calculated statistic is 4.714 and sets this value indicating a significant difference between the two samples. So we reject the null hypothesis and conclude that the panelists can detect the sensory difference between the two samples of pandan cake. Minitab display the actual count and expected count and the standardized residual in each cell, which indicates the magnitude and direction of the difference between the actual and expected counts.
Based on the data analytics collected by using SPSS statistics, N is the total panelists which consists of 60 panelists. The mean value for total correct is 0.7333 and for total incorrect is 0.2667. The total sum for total correct is 44 and for total incorrect is 16. The standard deviation for both total correct and incorrect is 0.44595. The frequency for total correct is 73.3% and for total incorrect is 26.7%. The population descriptive statistics shows that the variance for both total correct and incorrect is 0.196. Thus, there is a significant difference and the total correct value is higher than the total incorrect. Therefore, we can conclude that the panelists can detect the difference between the two samples.
Minitab is also used to compile and evaluate the service data. So here, chi-square tests are used to analyze the preference of the panelists with regard to gender and age group.
For the discussion, the first one is parameters evaluated in this test and it's important. The different paired comparison test results are analyzed using chi-square test to assess the association between the response and the parameters gender and age. The result revealed that female answered correctly in 63.64%, whereas male answered correctly in 36.36%. The finding also show a significant correlation between response and age, with young adult tending to respond correctly at rate of 15.91 below 20 years old and 84.09 for 21 years old until 25 years old. It has been proven that older persons have more sensitivity in discussing the different formulation and ingredient. Based on the chi-square test between response, gender, age are result in a computed statistic that is smaller than the critical value for chi-square, suggesting that there is no significance between the group and that is not influenced by any of the variable exam in our study.
Results show that there is a statistically significant preference between Apollo Pandan cake and Oriental Pandan cake, with 44 panelists correctly guessing and 16 panelists wrongly guessing. The amount of sugar per every serving for Apollo Pandan cake is 5 gram, meanwhile Oriental Pandan cake is a bit higher and contains 4.3 gram and an additional of 4 gram sugars with 9% daily value. Most panelists prefer Apollo Pandan cake because its texture is softer, lighter and does not crumbly, and it does not contain xanthan gum as thickener. Most of the time, pandan cake has been eaten during a certain occasion or festival or party, and sometimes it is also used as a goodies. This is why the results of the survey show 45 panelists consume pandan cake once in a month, while only 15 panelists consume pandan cake often.
We continue with the next discussion. Result comparison with other studies and researchers. The purpose of this research is to determine the panelists' sensory test to detect the similarities or difference attributes in samples. More panelists overall correctly answered the question on the different paired samples. Comparatively, fewer panelists in total gave false answer, indicating that the majority were able to recognize the similarities and difference between two samples. The study conducted by BGM Vandergins James Myers-Verbeek in Data Handling in Science and Technology in 1998 has a significant difference in the comparison with other studies and researchers to this research. When comparing their study, they may find very little discrepancies in the outcomes. Their research are quite preferable for panelists to determine their liking. Therefore, there is a significant difference in the comparison with other studies and researchers to this research.
Based on the findings, we can summarize that there is a significant difference between the two products, implying that both popular pandan cake brands must have their own goals and target customer by using different formulation and ingredients. Okay, for example, the Apollo brand used coconut flour. Coconut flour is extremely absorbent and it also has a drying effect. As a result, their products may appeal to those who prefer gritty texture cakes in more neutral colors, while the Oriental brand uses food coloring, which is brilliant blue. It is used with tartrazine to produce a green color. Therefore, this product may appeal to consumers who prefer a more attractive cake color. The formulation and ingredients used produce variety and differences in taste, texture and color for both brands, allowing customers to choose products based on their preference. As a result, we can say food product innovation has been highlighted in food industry, as it can benefit both food companies and consumers as their preference change over time. As from all have stated, we can say Apollo and Oriental has their own formulation and taste. Therefore, in this test, we can conclude that taste and color influence panelists' ability to detect differences between samples. Okay, next, from data analysis results, all of the calculated data depict that there is a significant difference. Thus, the null hypothesis is successfully rejected. It demonstrates that the panelists could distinguish between two popular brands of pandan cake samples. The majority of the panelists were able to distinguish between the pandan cake samples. However, because they were untrained, few panelists were unable to detect differences between samples. It may also be difficult to tell the difference because they are not used to eating pandan cake. Okay, so with all of this, we can conclude that this project was a success.